My name is Galhardo. I'm the founder of Tenkara USA, and today we're starting a series of how-to Tenkara. I'm going to introduce you to everything you need to know to go start fly fishing with a Tenkara rod. Tenkara is a simple Japanese method of fly fishing that uses only a rod, line, and fly. Originally, it was done by commercial anglers in the mountain streams of Japan trying to catch fish for a living. Nowadays, we use it as a sport. In Tenkara, we have the rod. The rods are really cool. They're telescopic, so you have this 20-inch rod like this, but they extend out to about 12 feet on average. So that's pretty neat. If you're going to go backpacking and that kind of thing, easy to pack up and take a rod along. Besides the rod, you have a line that you're going to be tying right to the tip of the rod, typically about the same length as the rod when you're starting off, but you can use longer lines as well. At the end of your main line, you're going to be using tippet, which is the very clear, thin fishing line that goes between the main line and the fly. Then we have Tenkara flies. I'm going to introduce you to the concept of Tenkara flies and how we use them throughout the series. And besides that, the only accessories that I like to carry, little nippers to cut off tippet when I need to, forceps to remove the hook from a fish if they take it a little deeper. So that's Tenkara in a nutshell. Very intuitive, very simple to learn, don't need a lot of equipment, and I hope you get out and enjoy Tenkara. It's very easy to use a Tenkara rod. So right now the rod is collapsed. There's a plug that keeps everything inside protected, inside the handle. You're going to remove the plug. If the rod doesn't have a place to store the plug like our rods do, just put it in a dedicated pocket so you don't lose it. To extend the rod, what you're going to be doing is holding the rod really close to the opening, tilting it so that you can control the segments coming out. The tip of the rod has the hard tip made of carbon fiber and a soft braided material. Typically, you're going to be tying the line to the rod before extending it out. So you're going to have the hard tip inside, expose only the braided material, tie it on, and then you're going to proceed to extend the rod out. To extend the rod, you're going to pull one segment after the other until the next segment is snug with the first one. And you do it in order until you reach the end. Some of the rods might be adjustable. So for example, this is the Sato, one of our primary rods. You can fish it at 10 feet 8 inches and you pull it straight out, 11 feet 10 inches, 12 feet 9 inches. To collapse the rod, we're just going to do it in reverse. So with the adjustable rods, you're going to push it in until it locks in place, push the next one in, and then you start collapsing the rod on the first large segment, one after the other. I like to use 2 fingers as opposed to a whole hand when I'm doing that. And the other thing is try to hold the rod close to the joint as opposed to far away as you push it in. And that prevents a lot of breakages. And that's it. At the end of the day, you're going to put your plug in, protect everything inside, and that's your Tenkara rod. In Tenkara, I like to teach one knot that you really need to know to start fishing, and then there's a simple hitch depending on the type of line that you use. If you're using a line that has a loop at the end already, like a soft loop, all you're going to be doing is fold this loop over, pull the line through, and essentially that gives you a hitch that you can put on the tip of your rod. If you're using what we call the level line, you're just going to tie a very simple stopper. Any knot works okay here. You're going to tie that on both ends of the line. And then the line that goes on the rod tip, here's where we use the one knot that I like to teach. Essentially making a loop, 2 small loops on the base of that, pinch it to keep it open, 1, 2, and then I'm going to go through the 2 small loops that I formed from the back towards me. Pull it all tight, and then I have a cinching kind of knot. And then, with the tip of the rod, having the hard tip inside, I'm going to go around twice and tightening. And that's it. For the tippet to line, I tied a fisherman's knot at the end of my tippet, making a loop. I'm going to go over the main line, tighten it, and then slide it against the stopper. For the tippet to fly, I'm going to go through the eye of the fly first, Now I got my big loop, and then I'm going to make the 2 small loops. 1, 2. Go through the 2 small loops that I formed, like so. Grab the tip and tighten everything. In Tenkara you can use any fly that you like. But one of my favorite things about Tenkara is that it shows us there's a different way of thinking about fly fishing and fly selection. In Japan, most anglers stick with one fly pattern and then they work and rely on their technique instead of the fly pattern itself. Many Tenkara flies have this reverse hackle, facing away from the bend of the hook. One of my favorite things about these flies is that if you give it motion, if you twitch the fly is going to open and close and pulsate and have a lot of movement. The simplicity, the versatility of the flies is one of the things that really appeals to me as well. You can use one fly in a variety of different conditions just by using different techniques. Another thing that I like is that I'm not second guessing my fly choice all the time. I'm just kind of having flies that are suggestive. The Tenkara flies, they're not imitating any particular bug. They're just suggesting a lot of different insects in the water. And for that reason, I think they work in a variety of different conditions. So simple Tenkara flies, I have some larger ones that I typically like to use when the water is running a little higher, a little murkier. Some middle-sized flies, like a size 12 fly for most conditions. And if nothing else is working, I go a little smaller to size 16. That's the smallest fly that I carry. And that's it, Tenkara flies in a nutshell. And now let me show you how it's used. Tenkara cast is very intuitive. It's a little bit like picking up a rock and try to toss it at a target. Your brain does most of the work for you. Hold the rod with an index finger on the top. The best place to hold the rod is usually going to be right at the end of the handle, although you can hold it anywhere you want, above the handle or even above the first segment. You're going to throw the line back by moving the rod fast to around a 12 o'clock position on the back cast, and then throw it forward on the forward cast. Stopping the rod pointing straight up at around 45-degree angle so that the fly goes first. Whenever you get to a spot, take a look above you and to the sides and be aware of the trees that are above you or over your shoulders so that you don't get snagged. If there's a tree right over your head, cast it to the side a little bit. You can also modify your cast a little bit, so you can do sidearm casts whenever there's a lot of trees near you, or you can even do a little bit of a slingshot cast if things are super tight. You can also change the speed of your rod and the angles. If there's trees right above you and like on the sides, you can stop the rod a little bit sooner on the back cast, making the line go more straight up. And you can move a little bit faster sometimes. If you want to shoot the fly below a target in front of you, on the forecast, stop the rod a little bit lower, making the line travel closer to the water. There are several different ways you can present your fly to the fish, and I'm going to give you an introduction to those right now. The main one is what we call the dead drift, essentially where your fly flows with the speed of the current. If the stream is flowing this way, I'm going to cast it a little upstream. As the fly comes down, I'm just going to follow it. If I'm casting in front of me, I'm just going to follow it down. That's called the dead drift, and I would imagine about 80% of your presentation should be a dead drift, where the fly is behaving as naturally like a dead bug as you can. But if that's not working, you can try different things as well. So for example, you can try twitching your fly up and down, give it a little bit of motion. It's a very small amount of motion right here on the rod, although the tip is bouncing quite a bit. And of course you can vary the speed and the amount of bounce that you're doing depending on the conditions. The next thing you can try as well, if the dead drift and the pulsating the fly don't work, try stopping the fly at a certain spot. So you can have the rod tip upstream from your fly, stop it in place, and that's called the pause technique. And it's really good to use when there's like submerged rocks and there might be a fish in front of a rock and you want to entice the fish. Another thing that I really like to try is the pause and drift technique, where I stop my fly, let it drift, stop, let it drift, stop, let it drift. Lastly but not least, I like to do the pulling technique, where I'm going to be pulling my fly towards me, towards my shore, or pull it upstream about a foot at a time, giving it a lot of different action. So those are the main techniques that you can use: a dead drift, pulsating technique, a pause and drift, or a pulling technique. If you've done everything right and you cast at the right spot and you entice the fish with a good technique, you're going to be getting bites. A lot of people ask, how do you detect strikes when the fish take your fly? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Primarily, it's going to consist of you trying to see anything that's a little out of the ordinary that could represent a fish. Either your line is going to stop, or perhaps you're watching the line and then the line is going to tighten, or you might just see a flash or a shadow or the white in the fish's mouth. And you have to get in the habit of tightening the line just a little bit more. When you're tenkara fishing, you should aim at trying to keep the line tight. And as you see anything that could be a fish, tighten it up a little bit more, so your motion is going to be just very light and quick. So that's how you set the hook when you detect a strike with tenkara. One of the most common questions we get with tenkara is, how do you reel in a fish when you have no reel? And that's one of the most intuitive things about it. When a fish is pulling one way and you get excited, all you know is that you need to bring the fish to you, and you're going to do it instinctively. You're just going to start angling the rod back and grab the fish or net the fish. But here are a few tips that I can share with you. When you're fighting a fish, always try to have the rod pointed at least at a 45-degree angle or so that the rod can flex and protect the tippet. If you lower the tip of the rod and it's a larger fish, most likely it's going to break off. Keep the rod pointed up and start angling the rod back. Keep your arm close to your body as you're trying to bring the fish in, instead of extending the arm out and behind you. That's going to make it harder to grab the line or bring the fish in. So keeping your arm close to your body, angle the rod back. I usually switch my grip to a thumb on top to angle the rod back. If the line is longer than the rod, I'm going to reach for the line. And it helps to either have the rod straight in front of me or pointing slightly to my open arm. Grab the line, hand line it, bring the fish in as close to me as I can, and net the fish. And it's important to keep it close to you so that you have a little bit more control over the fish as well. The most important thing you can learn to fish is where the fish are most likely going to be and how to approach a stream so that you can catch as many fish as you can. So for one, let me talk a little bit about reading water. One rule of thumb is to look for places where calm water is going to meet fast water. Essentially, the faster water is going to be bringing the food to the fish, but calm water allows the fish to be hanging in there without spending a lot of energy fighting the currents. Whenever you find calm water meeting fast water, that's a good combination because the fish can hang in the calm water and get food coming in from the fast water. In a mountain stream, just look for the calmest waters that you can, but also look for structures. Like in front of rocks, you might have whirlpools. Behind rocks, you have cushions of water where the currents are going to meet and find some kind of calm water as well. Look for foam, where we say foam is home. So those are good indicators of places where you can cast your fly. Next, a little bit about how to reach certain spots and how to fish a particular pool. Typically, I like to start moving upstream, but you can fish a pool either upstream or downstream. Either one is going to give you a little bit of different presentations. What I usually do is stay far from the stream so that I can cast on the shore closest to me first. And I do 2 or 3 casts on that spot, and then I move closer to the shore so that I can fish the other side or the middle of the pool, and then I start moving upstream. Typically, if a pool looks really good, I might fish a 2 or 3 casts from downstream up, and then I might change my angles, go upstream, and fish it from upstream down. And that's going to give me different presentations to entice fish. If we want to continue catching fish for the long term, it's really important that we take good care of them when we catch them. So first of all, when you do catch a fish, try to bring it in as quickly as possible. Minimize the amount of fighting that you do with a fish so that it doesn't get exhausted. Net the fish and try to keep the fish in the water for as long as possible, and then remove the hook. Removing the hook is pretty simple. Sometimes you don't even have to touch the fish to do that. Once the hook is off its mouth, make it face upstream so that you have currents coming through its gills, and then when the fish wants to swim away, let it go. It's as simple as that. Minimize handling the fish, keep it wet as long as possible, and release it to live another day.